Welcome to Pride and Promotion, the podcast that celebrates every color under the rainbow and dives deep into the heart of marketing, exploring how innovation and diversity can drive business growth. I'm Joe Federico, your host on this exciting journey and owner of J. Federico Marketing. Every week, we reveal the magic behind effective brand storytelling and examine how inclusive marketing can transform your business landscape. So get ready, because this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Hey folks, how are you? I am Joe Federico, your host, you know this by now, of the Pride and Promotion podcast. And for spooky season, I have queer writer and director Mike Zara on the show. And I'm so happy to have him. Mike, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm ready to talk horrified and social media and spooky season and everything under the queers rainbow with you today.
Yay.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
So please tell everybody out there in, TV, social media land, where you come from, what you're working on, and then we'll jump into the conversation that way.
Sure. Yeah. So I am a TV writer. That's kind of like what I do and have been doing the last decade. I wrote on a show called Major Crimes for years and wrote a horror comedy for the Sci-Fi Channel called Letters to Satan Claus, and sold pilots and stuff like that. And the industry has really taken a turn since basically COVID, and then we had the writer's strike last year. So I've always been a proactive creator, but right now, because it's so hard to get things up and running, I'm trying to do it on my own. So I am putting together a independent film, which is a horror comedy called Horrified. And it's very meta. It's a story about a down on her luck horror scream queen who attends a horror convention where somebody dressed up like the killer from her trilogy starts targeting the celebrities at the convention. So she kind of has to become a final girl in real life. It's, like I said, very meta. It's sort of Scream meets New Nightmare. That's what I've been doing now, and what I'm promoting and trying to get more eyes and dollars on, because we are shooting next week. I don't know when this airs, but we're shooting October 18th through the 20th at Scarefest, which is our partner in our convention partner. And we're shooting B-roll footage and sizzle reel footage with some of our actors, and to hopefully drum up more investors and interest, and to actually get this movie greenlit. Yeah.
That is an amazing journey. Number one. Number two, the queer boys love horror, which we can dive into again in a few moments for many different reasons.
Yep.
But you said something interesting. I was going to go somewhere else with this, but I'm completely flipped the script quite literally on you. Okay. And I'm going to go into this question first. Do you feel like you're the final girl in your own life working with social media and in your industry? Because we really want to know, and I really want to hear the answer. So the floor is yours.
I love that. That is fantastic. I think we all are our own final girls in our lives, right? We have to kind of really fight to survive and to come through the end healthier and happier. And that's what a final girl is. And so, I absolutely am a final girl in life. Like I said, the last 5 years almost have been really, really hard, just work and career and industry wise. And so, I really do feel like I'm running away from the killer, so I survive. And I feel like Horrified is the way to come out the other end. So, but that's hilarious. I think that's a really interesting sentiment, I think, for everybody, really. Like, we're all our own final girl.
We don't really have a choice. We don't have a choice.
Yeah. No choice. And
especially in our community too, as you said, to overcome and come out better than we've ever imagined, and to live our most truthful lives thereafter going forward.
Yep. So, oh God. Yeah. Politically, all that too. Yep.
You read my mind. I wasn't going to touch the ball, but I mean, we're here anyway. So you know what I mean? So especially in this landscape that we are in politically, we have
Mm-hmm.
to be more ourselves than ever. And
Absolutely.
and not only become the final girl, but to inspire others to reach their goal and to keep on going forward that way. So there's that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
said you've been in the industry like over a decade, which I find fascinating. I'm so in
I mean,
awe
I've
of
been in
your
the
career.
I've been in the industry for 2 decades.
2 decades. Okay.
Started as an actor, but didn't
Yeah.
become a writer professionally. Getting paid till
Yeah.
about a decade ago. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So that actually makes this conversation more interesting. So go back 2 decades regarding where marketing was and your industry, right? So
Mm.
let's rewind. Let's go on the DeLorean and go back and talk about how you were, getting jobs back then without really, the birth
Mm.
of our modern social media platform
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
how you were getting the word out about your projects.
Well, yeah, back then, let's see. I mean, I I was acting, and so that I wasn't really trying to promote myself. What I will say is the first short I ever wrote and directed, it was a horror comedy. Here we
Mhm.
go. About 20 years ago, I think. And it was called Secretary's Day, and it was basically a spoof of all the holiday horror movies. Like, I'm
Mhm.
like, what is like a ridiculous holiday? They're not even called secretaries anymore, but they were 20 years ago. Um, but there's a point to the story, and I'll answer your question. So I I was like in my early 20s. I was super young, super naive, and I just started reaching out to people. And one of the people I reached out to, this was before I think Drag Race had even hit, was World of
Mhm.
Wonder. And they had more of a presence on the internet. Like, this was sort of like around, I mean, I'm really feel like I'm aging myself, but like the birth of like YouTube. And I remember reaching out to them. I went into their offices, and they promoted on their Wow report, their website,
Mhm.
my short film. And I did this big screening in Hollywood. And so, like, it was kind of just bootstraps, like, you know, boots on the pavement, whatever, a lot of boots, moving around, like, to get word out. Um, and yeah, now it's a lot easier, but also hard to, I don't know, cut through the noise. That's a big thing with marketing, I think. And not having a publicist or a zillion dollars to promote your project is I don't know, finding that sort of lightning in a bottle that will get eyes and ears on it.
Yeah. So were you actually writing letters I mean, there was email, of course, 20 years ago, but were you
Yeah.
like physically going into the internet and searching these people to contact and just going
Yeah.
from
Yeah, I mean, Google's been my best friend since it was born. Yeah, I think I just started reaching out to people, and I think tried to reach out to the queer community because I was out back then too, and felt like it had a certain kind of campy angle to it, and that was sort of how I tried to get people to see it. And yeah, I mean, nothing happened after the short with that one, but
Sure.
it was a great first try. So
I mean, you have to start somewhere, right?
yeah.
Especially with your passions.
Hmm.
So now from that point, let's fast forward 10 years,
Yeah.
with getting paid, which, that's the end goal, but amazing
Yeah.
and congratulations on that story and
Thank
how
you.
you've gotten there.
Yeah.
Amazingly talented and handsome and just ready to go. But regarding the last decade, how has that shifted? From just Googling and sending emails to winding up on YouTube to actually hopefully utilizing what's available to you regarding these platforms that are on social media.
Yeah. I mean, I it's hard for me. It's hard to kind of promote yourself, especially when you're trying to ask for money for a project. That's
Mhm.
been really difficult. And this is actually the first project I've ever tried to crowdfund. I've done everything else, every short film, every music video, I've paid for myself. And that's because I was working and things were good. So yeah, it's a little different on this. Like when I was on Major Crimes or promoting my movie on Sci-Fi, like yeah, I would just reach out to horror websites or blogs or reviewers and all of that to be like, hey, like I've got an episode or my movie's premiering and it's got a queer angle, or again, it always goes back to the gay thing, but
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, it's people are more accessible, I guess, now because the internet and social media, but yeah, it's a little it's still hard, I think, just in terms of like emotionally putting yourself out there.
Sure. Sure. I mean, again, if you, as my mom used to say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and especially with, if you have the queer angle, you have to get their attention. So
Hmm.
working with a platform like Sci-Fi, which is everybody's dream in this industry, at least for me,
Yeah.
being a queer
Hmm.
kid, growing up watching, Swamp Thing or whatever on the
Right.
Sci-Fi Channel
Yeah.
years. Not to date myself,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm talking about. Everybody out there,
Yeah.
you understand. How is that? Once you worked with a platform, like that or studio, did they help get the word out or like feed you content for social media, or were they just like, good luck? I mean,
Yeah, I there was a shift in executives, I think, when my movie came out, and
Mhm.
so it was the publicity train wasn't running real big and bold. So I actually did a lot on my own. I really did. I reached
Mhm.
out to um, some publicist friends. I got interviewed by the New York Times, which was incredible because they were looking for to talk to people that were involved in like LGBTQ holiday movies, and
Mhm.
so I got interviewed for that. Um, but yeah, a lot of it was me. I'm gonna give myself that credit, being the final girl that I am.
Yes, as you should.
I had to, yeah, because I think I was really proud of it, and I think sometimes the sci-fi movies go into like the Sharknado camp, and I my movie's ridiculous. It's called Letters to Satan Claus, but there were things about it that I was really proud of, like the queer B storyline. There's a romance, and I mean the whole thing's just very gay. Our director had our 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 monster Satan Claus be non-binary. That was like a whole other
Ooh,
thing.
okay.
Like there was no gender to
Right.
our our evil being, but so yeah, I did a lot of it on my own. And yeah, just reaching out to people I knew and to strangers. I will say, like, the horror community is pretty incredible in terms of like, I think especially in the queer pocket of it, like
Mhm.
people just want to see themselves represented and they want to support um, queer filmmakers and creators in this space. So I've gotten a lot of just love from various people. Horror Buzz is Norm, who runs Horror Buzz, has been incredible, and um, yeah, it's very touching when you randomly reach out to somebody and they actually respond and actually, you know, post an article or whatever.
And then you can utilize all those, clips, New York Times, all the
Hmm.
other platforms
Yeah.
on your social media platforms as well. That's more content you can utilize. That's more evergreen, to kind of build yourself up.
Yeah. And that was almost 4 years ago. So I feel like if it were to come out today, it would be a different story. Like I'd be putting stuff on TikTok and like talking about behind the scenes and interviewing the actors and all those things, the things that I'm doing for Horrified,
Sure.
which is literally like every social media platform because I have to, you know?
So that's a great point. How do you feel that you're staying relevant and growing your persona, from your inception of being in the industry 20 years and then 10 years on social media, getting paid. So where let's go back to that for a moment. How do you feel that you're utilizing all that and your experience? And then where do you see your persona online going forward with your projects, especially in the horror community?
Wow. That's like a big question.
And I want to hear it all. So
Like I said, it's been it's been a journey for me. I think social media, it can be really amazing, but I think it's also can be very hard when you're seeing other people like doing great things and successful like moments and where maybe you're not doing so great. And I guess now it's sort of like I'm trying to flip the script, with your words, and really just try to stay positive and yeah, just promote it in hopefully a non-icky way. And my hope really is, because again, I quit being an actor, um you know almost 20 years ago, uh because it just didn't I didn't feel right in front of the camera. It didn't inspire me.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a little bit of theatricalness, or I know that's not maybe a word, but there's sort of a presentational thing that you have to do being on social media when you're, talking to your audience.
Yeah.
Um, I'm less interested in that because that kind of goes into the actor category. What I'm more interested in, what I'm excited about Scarefest and teaming up with them and shooting our B-roll and sizzle at the convention, is really getting to interact with the horror community and the fans
Mhm.
directly more than ever. Like that, I really do feel like this movie is for them. It's about the horror fandom. It's about celebrity and all of those things that can get a little muddy, and when maybe people are too obsessed with an actor or a character they played,
Mhm.
or the other side of it where there's celebrities that aren't grateful or gracious to the people that have kept them relevant.
Sure.
But yeah, I really look forward to, yeah, just getting to know these people better and like getting to meet them in real life. And hopefully they're on this journey with me, really trying to, get sort of a different take or vision on horror, and especially horror comedy, through my lens.
Sure. When you were saying a few seconds ago that getting on camera for social media, or actually that's where the question's going, but when you were saying that getting on camera acting wasn't really your jam, I fully respect that. I fully understand that. But for social media, when you do put yourself in front of the camera now, because I have, been following you for quite some time on your
Mm.
platforms, when you go on camera to talk about your projects, how do you feel? Are you, Mike the actor, or is that 1,000% human, just doing what you got to do to get the word out because you have the following across the platforms?
Yeah, I mean, like talking to you, I feel like myself. So I don't think I'm in actor mode. I think it's like, maybe you have to, put in a joke, or you know what I mean, be charming, as much as you can be. But yeah, I'm not putting on a persona. I really, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I just didn't relate to being an actor is,
Mhm.
I'm just kind of me, and there's kind of no way of around it. and
Right.
and I'd rather just be myself and authentic. And I am. I mean, I'm really passionate about this project, and that's why I'm working my ass off for no money to get it going.
To see it to come to fruition and be
Hmm.
successful. Knock on
Yeah.
wood, which it will be
Yeah.
because you're working so
Thank
hard and your team is. Of course, going back to you were saying you can't wait to meet people that are playing your characters and meet them in person, and you have this community formed, of course, in the love of horror and for the queer community. But I want to bring to light the point of user generated content. Do you feel that the fans or the other actors and people that are behind the scenes can create content on their own, or have you seen that in the past where they can make your projects become more successful because of what they're doing behind the scenes? Is this something you've seen, or would you like to see?
um I can't speak to like, I mean, this project is so new that
Uh-huh.
I've had like actors repost things that I've posted, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think the more the merrier, right? I think especially actors who have followings and the little blue check mark, like I think all of that is super helpful to get things across. I will say, like, I've been really amazed by some of the fans of some of our actors that are attached. Jason Bear, who was on Roswell and The Grudge and everything, he's one of our actors. And some of his fans have been like creating their own sort of like posts and posters for the movie and for the GoFundMe and everything. And
Mhm.
that can only help. And again, this movie in particular is about the fans, and so why not have them help? And if they want to see this thing, like you said, come to fruition, like great, you know what I mean? If it's done in a non um sort of tacky way, and it is sort of like has as much passion behind it than as I do, then great. Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's awesome. But I also think it's not expected. Like, um, I'm very with all my because I have, like 10 actors attached to this project. I'm one of those people that's like, whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to promote this, great. If you want to be tagged in this, great. If you don't, I get it. Like I not everybody wants to be tagged in, I'm posting every day. Like that's also
Sure.
a lot too. So
Sure. I mean, like a lot's changed, as you had mentioned earlier, too, since COVID, I'm sure, in your industry, but also in the marketing PR industry. You know, it was all about the influencer marketing. And then everybody, stayed at home and they started getting online and they created these accounts and personas and everybody became a content creator, which I actually think was a boom and it was fabulous
mhm,
because that hasn't changed. It's evolved.
mhm,
It's become more smarter. People are working with the algorithms and metrics and becoming more human. And I said that for a
mhm.
reason because especially if there are actors out there, you may have not been sure who was acting, even the gen population, versus who was genuine about creating content or promoting their projects and services or whatever that would
Mhm,
entail.
mhm.
So now people want to see the human side. And I liked your answer where you're like, it's just me. You were an actor, now you're a writer director. And it's like, I'm seeing the true version of you come out. And that's what's really, I think, going to attract other people. And also
Good.
working with, celebrities in the past, people on television, coming from a background in that myself, I've seen studios, you know, send out their press release to, to the team or the actors or what have you. And I've
Mhm,
seen studios send out lists of what was mandatory to have their staff or their actors or even their cast promote on social media, and it would be a
mhm,
mess. So I asked that purposely to kind of bring this up and say that's amazing that you're taking the organic approach, not hitting the emergency button on your social media for the cast and crew, saying,
yeah.
if you want, if you believe in it, go forward. So, how do you feel about that evolution of what you're doing organically versus what was done in the past of the mandatory scheduling and posting?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been on that side of it, like, so I can't really speak to it. You know, we, like, when I was on Major Crimes, like, we weren't told what to post. We would do like Facebook live chats with our fans every week just
Mhm.
because we wanted to. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I can only really, yeah, speak to me and what I'm doing, and yeah, just trying to reach um, an audience that loves horror and wants to help make something organically.
Yeah, yeah. No, just again, just getting your 2 cents on that, because from what I'm hearing from you, what I've seen in the past, it's always the rule of thumb for social media should be just be organic. And if you build it or if you share it, they will come and they will share and
Mhm.
they'll believe in your project. And then you don't know, as we talked about, the UGCs, the user generated content will take off,
Mhm.
and then it's out of your hands. But
Yeah.
switching gears for a moment, you were saying
Mhm.
for the love of horror. What got you into horror originally, as especially as a queer man? Like, you could have got into anything and you chose horror and you made that, your passion. So explain more of
Yeah.
that to us.
Well, yeah, and I do write, I came from procedurals, and I write all kinds of things. I always have humor in my stuff. But I write YA. I kind of do everything. I but I am horror is one of my love languages. And so I feel like, I don't know, I think it's usually, what you're brought up with, and I just gravitated towards scary movies as a kid, and but they were the ones that were a little cheeky, a little over the top, like
Mhm.
Nightmare on Elm Street. That series, like, is probably why I write horror. Like, I feel like every kid that loves horror or grew up loving horror had a franchise, whether it was Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or Halloween, and I'm a Freddy kid, and I think there for me it was the sort of dance between scary and funny, and and especially the later Nightmare on Elm Streets, because those are what were playing a lot on HBO or whatever I was watching as a
Mhm.
kid, because all I did was watch TV.
Definitely
Um,
HBO back in the day. Yes, you're right.
Okay, HBO. So Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, is my number one because it was on so much, probably, but it was colorful and bold, and the kills were really over the top and epic and creative, and yeah, I think that's what got me into it. And I've said this many times, like either being interviewed or just talking to people. I think queer kids, maybe they don't know it, but they sometimes relate to the monster as like the other or the freak,
Mhm.
and in a way you're kind of rooting for them to kill the, cis white straight people.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's interesting to me. um and and that sort of changed. I think now it's like the stuff I write, I don't want the the villain to win. I maybe a couple of like the idiots that get into their crossfire, but I want my final girl to survive and get him at the end in a pretty epic way.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that the sort of the fun, the escapism, but also sort of, yeah, the queer sort of, um, and it's not even coding. I don't think it was just feeling like another and the other, and relating to them. Um, Also, Freddie, there's something like kind of sexual about him in a weird way too. Like that's or there's
That's
something.
interesting. Like how so, like with the glove, or
Yeah,
just
I think with a
character?
glove, and just
Like, where are we going with this?
he's very flirty with his victims, and but maybe there's like a showmanship, which is kind of camp too. Like, and for me, I think it can't be over the top campy. Um, I actually really don't love the word camp because I feel like it pigeonholes things.
Mhm.
Um, but I call my genre bloody bubblegum because I feel like it's poppy, it's fun, but it also, there's a dark undertone to it. But yeah, I don't know. Freddy Krueger, he was Robert Englund, obviously. Um, not the other one.
Not the
Just
newer one. The new,
no,
no.
no, no, sacrilegious. Yeah, I think that's all those things are why I love horror and continue to love it.
I want to speak with you for hours on this because I'm a horror kid myself. And I'm a Halloween fan myself. I'm
Mm,
of course the holiday, but Michael Myers does it for me, and
yeah.
I think always will. I will always spend my money on whichever new franchise is birthed.
Mm, you're
Um,
right.
but I'll never forget that either. The first time that my friend and I in middle school, not to date myself, years ago in the '90s, turned on Halloween for the first time, got a pizza, and you were grossed out, and it was campy and delicious and all the emotions, but it was very different from my perspective, being the
Yeah.
queer kid who wasn't understanding who I was at the time,
Right.
relating to the monster, versus
Yeah.
my friend who later, of course, came out as heterosexual. I said that, purposely to kind of frame that up.
Yeah.
And and I've fallen in love with Michael Myers. I always want, I mean, not Halloween Kills, spoiler alert, or ends, but that's besides the point, a whole different
Mhm.
conversation and podcast.
Yep.
But he always comes back. And I think Lori, of course, is the final girl, and she always will
Hmm.
be. She holds a special place, I think, in our community's heart for those of
Sure.
us that are Halloween fans, of the
Yep.
franchise.
Yeah.
But Michael Myers has that gusto. He comes back and he's like, damn it, I'm not going to let anything get me down. So I wanted to get on my soapbox and speak about that.
It's your
you know,
soapbox. You
yeah,
you get to do what you want.
yeah. Now to flip the script one more time, kind of before we wrap up,
Hmm.
um, your experiences, as a queer man in the industry.
Hmm.
Um, here's where the pride part comes in with pride and promotion. Is how have you overcome your your bumps and bruises in the industry, but have you experienced the darker side of the industry, and has that affected your work just in general?
Um. Hmm.
Have
Yeah.
monsters crept out, of course not saying names or anything, but being in this similar realm myself, a lot of things for me starting out were very transactional. I'm not going to say exactly what they were, but it was
Right.
like, I need help. Okay, then give me this in return, and I'll give you the world. And I'm like,
Yeah. I mean,
so
yeah. I think back in my twink actor days, I came across more of that.
yeah,
And was able to kind of avoid any of that, but I saw a lot of it, and I saw it
hmm
happening to friends. Um, and yeah, I mean, I hope that things are shifting. I think back then I was just trying to like figure out what I wanted to do, and so I was meeting a lot of people too. Like
hmm
now I feel like, well, A, I'm older, and B, I think once you kind of finally like get into a groove in the industry and start a career, like you kind of have your people, you have your like your friends, you have your colleagues, you kind of start working with those people over and over again.
hmm
um I really do think it's kind of a youth problem. I really do. I think it's,
interesting.
so I don't know like what it's like now, but yeah, 20 years ago, yeah, people, I saw all kinds of things,
hmm
with all kinds of, you know, bad actors in terms of, people with power.
Sure.
Um, but I will not be naming names. But yeah, I think it's hopefully have changed, and especially with Me Too and everything. I hope some of that has changed. But yeah, I don't know in terms of like being a writer and how that has affected me, like being openly queer. I don't know. I will say what's frustrating to me is hearing about writers' rooms that don't have any queer people.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, having diversity in terms of like cultures and ethnicities and everything is really important. But I think if you have just a bunch of straight people in a room, that A, not fun. B, I just don't think it does anything to kind of expand, I don't know, minds or a story. I feel like if you don't have one queer character on your show or in your film and there's not a queer creator along with it, you're doing something wrong.
We need that representation.
Yeah.
Always, especially as we said, in this landscape that we're living through politically, we need that more than ever. And thank you to you and your team truly for assuring that your projects have that in your films and your
Yeah.
projects. So
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah,
Thanks. Thank you.
of course. So you know what? We're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Again, I would love to have you on again in the future. Best of luck on everything that you're doing. But
Thank you.
if you can offer quickly one piece of advice to somebody breaking into the industry, the
Hmm.
horror queer industry, right?
Okay.
And getting on social media, what would that piece of advice be?
Um, I would say be bold and reach out to people, or if you know somebody that knows someone, that's usually the better route. I'd rather get a text message from somebody that I worked with that knows somebody that's trying to break into the industry rather than some stranger. But I think I'll go back. The biggest thing is, yeah, try to connect as many dots as you can in the industry, even
Mhm.
if, you know, your second cousin or your aunt or somebody knows somebody. Everybody knows somebody. And maybe it's not the queer horror genre, but maybe you can get to that genre through people that you know. And if you don't know anybody, then reach out to somebody online that you feel like you're not going to bug them, but you just want to advice, you know. Yeah, but it's tricky. It's a delicate dance because you don't want to be obnoxious or it's also people get inundated all the time with questions and requests and stuff like that, you know.
Sure,
So if
sure.
somebody if somebody I know, and I because I was once a young writer that didn't know anybody and had to be introduced to people. Like if there's anybody that ever comes to me and says, "Hey, Mike, will you talk to this writer? They've just graduated college, or they are interested in the industry." I'm like, "Yeah, I get coffee with them, I Zoom with them because that's what you're supposed to do. If you're, you know, you've gotten past that start line, you
Sure,
know."
sure. Well, thank you for doing that. Again, not on behalf of the community, but I know that we all need to help each other, and that's a
Yeah.
really beautiful sentiment. So thank you so much. So with that, Mr. Mike, can you please tell everybody how we can help, fund your film, where we to go, and
Yeah.
where we can find you on all the social media platforms?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for giving me this platform to talk about my movie. So
Of course.
yeah, it's the movie's called Horrified, and we're pretty much on all social media platforms at Horrified Movie. And you can find all of those on horrifiedmovie.com. Um, we have a GoFundMe. We're trying to raise a certain amount of money for the sizzle reel and footage that we're shooting at Scarefest next week. We've hit half of our goal, which I'm
Amazing.
really excited about. I'd love to hit the entire thing before I
Yes.
get to Kentucky, but I know it's a big ask, but if people have extra money and want to support queer horror and horror comedy and maybe are fans of Amy Teagarden from Friday Night Lights or Hallmark. She's our lead. And we have a lot of great actors attached to this. But yeah, they can give us $5, $10, whatever they can give is incredible. Obviously, paying to help certain political people or hurricane victims is more important than making a movie, but we need help too. But
Sure.
not so dire. And then I'm just on Instagram as myself, and that's at Zara Stories with a Z. So instead of an S, it's a Z because my last name is Zara. I just like putting Z's in everything.
Everybody check it out and help fund one of the greatest films that will ever be written. And I have the utmost confidence in you, Mike. Thank you so much. So much for joining and for being part of our community. Everybody, That's another episode of the Pride and Promotion Podcast. I'm your host. Go forth with pride, and we'll talk soon. Take care. That's a wrap for today's episode of Pride and Promotion. We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and inspiration on how to harness the power of diversity and innovation in your marketing strategies. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode, where we've got more exciting topics and expert guests lined up just for you. Until then, I'm Joe Federico. You can find me at www.jfedericomarketing.com, and I want to help you go forth with pride and make your mark in the world of marketing.